Well, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a great day. And as usual, we'll wait for a few of our dear friends to come on and say hello. And we appreciate that very, very much. And we thank you for your continued support. So who is going to be Kevin? Come on. Of course it's Kevin from Oshawa, Nativity. Good afternoon, Maria, Jen, Cape Breton. You guys are right at the top of the hit parade. Michael, how is you? Eric, bonjour. Ottawa, Andrea, how are you? Niagara Falls, Cecilia, Sudbury, and Wendy, Markham, Barbara, Atlanta, Yonang, bonjour, and Yvonne, St. Paul, Alberta, Georgie, Halifax, Nova Scotia, Jeanette, how are you? Catherine, Parksville, British Columbia, Deborah, and Vince, nice to have you. Corrine, how are you? Ned Guac, did I say that right? New Brunswick, Rose from Brampton, Janice, and I already said Janice to you, right? Pat, Jen, Donna. No, Kevin's saying hi to Jen. Etta, it goes by so fast, guys. Vera, Newfoundland. Anna, Manitoba. Glenna, New Brunswick. Havelock. Linda, Waterloo. Joanne, Riverview. Ruth Ann, good to have you on. Karen, Otter Lake, near Coldwater, Ontario. Okay, William, Markham, Rhonda. Oh, I want to sing, Rhonda. Dale, Janet, Beamsville, Ontario. Colleen, hello. Karen, Tucson, Arizona. I bet you it's hot there today. Kelly, London. Jeanette, how is ya? Okay. Ready to get going? Norma, Dallas, Texas. Ron Anderson from Northern Idaho. Terry, good afternoon, and Ashley. I hate to miss anybody, but we gotta get going. Elisa, excuse me, for North Bay. Eleanor and Andrea. How are you, Andrea? Nice to have you on with us this afternoon. Wendy from Fairmont Springs, British Columbia. Nick from our staff. Owen from Gorbay, or Gwen from Gorbay. Hey, Gwen. Carol. And Linda from Edmonton. Nicole. Lisa Marie Maria. Lorraine. Hello, guys. Gertie, how is ya? Okay. Now, let me give you something on cancer research first, and then I'm going to get into our topic today. We're going to talk about adrenal health, okay? But before we do, brand new research out of Princeton on cancer and tumors. And very, very interesting, okay? And guys, if you've been following me for any period of time, and I talk to you about cancer, I've often used this, haven't I? The ballpoint pen, right? Because it's a good illustration. Cancer cells, to get to the tip of a size of a ballpoint pen, for a tumor to get to this size. And ladies, I'm going to tell you something, in your breast tissue, I think you'd have trouble finding that even. But that's a 5-year growth right there. A 5-year growth. The size of a ballpoint pen. And guess what Princeton said? They said that's exactly right. They said, okay, let me read. Cancer metabolism. Okay, the metabolism is the word for, metabolism is the word for energy. Cancer energy, or cancer growth, is, and I'm quoting, slow as molasses. Cancer is slow as molasses. First part of the study. Okay? Because people have this idea. Last week, I went to my doctor. I felt a little lump or whatever, and my doctor took, biopsy, and a couple of weeks later, I get the diagnosis. Guess what? It's cancerous. Okay? Who likes to hear the C word? No one. Okay? But they have an idea that before they could feel that little lump, there was nothing going on there. But that's not true, guys. That's not true. And Princeton research is confirming there's been a growth going on, and by the time you can detect it, and by the time most testing detects it, it's been there for a long time. It's slow as molasses. That's the headline today. Slow as molasses, okay? Now, the other thing that Princeton said in their study, okay? Cancer, now tell me if you've heard this before. Cancer is looking for fuel. Okay? So let's pretend this is a little tumor here. Took 5 years to get here. The studies are confirming it. And this tumor needs fuel. Okay? And isn't it interesting? Here's what Princeton said. It cannot, will not survive. A tumor will not survive when it is given nutrients, vitamins, amino acids. When you feed your body the right way, you're not feeding cancer. Cancer, I've said it for 50 years, guys. Cancer only thrives on glucose, sugar. Princeton is saying it. Well, that didn't surprise me. I know it doesn't surprise you, but have you ever heard of an oncologist? Okay, and if you have, good for you, but there's very few that ever sent a patient home and said, by the way, I want you to eat steak, I want you to eat eggs, meat and cheese. I don't want you to eat any sugar. Got it? And you know what? One of the things that drives me crazy is when they leave oncology. You know, I used to have so many patients when I was in practice, and of course, you know, a lot of them came to see me after they got the diagnosis of cancer, and I used to treat a lot of nurses from the oncology department, and I really liked the people in the cancer industry, okay? And there were some good doctors in there too, very good. They just didn't know anything about nutrition. And I remember one time, a patient, after getting cancer came to see me, and I said, man, no sugar. And they said, well, my doctor sent me home with Ensure. I said, well, that's to ensure that your cancer grows. You don't want to be drinking Ensure. One of the worst things you can do, we talked about fructose yesterday. One of the worst things you can do is drink sugar, especially fructose. Cancer thrives on it. And yet, it's the drink, You know how they look at, the official drink of the Toronto Maple Leafs, or you know what I mean? Here's their official Gatorade or whatever their official drink is. And cancer patients, here's their official drink, Ensure or Boost. Brought to you by, my friend, that is the craziest thing in the world. Princeton, Ivy League school, their Department of Cancer Research is saying, lay off the sugar. Lay off the sugar. Cancer can't, you know what I've written, coming to a theater near you, Sun, Steak, and Steel, and Sleep. Okay? Coming to a theater near you. Okay? You know what I wrote in there? Cancer hates steak. Hates it. Because, and Princeton says it, when you give your body nutrients, vitamins, amino acids, cancer can't feed on it. It says, what have you done for me lately? How about something sweet, honey? That's what cancer does. And that's what cancer needs. Princeton, catching up with the times. Now, guys, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantees. People, just over the last couple of weeks, people said, hey, I got cancer. I ate well, and I did the reset and whatever, and, there's no guarantees, okay? But do everything you can. Put everything on your side, okay? Everything you can. Put everything on your side. We'll help you out on this end by giving you the latest information so that you can make choices. The idea with information is people get to make choices. You decide. And I've always had a pretty simple, not complex. I've been around so long. And people would come to me and they said, man, I got a bad diagnosis, stage 4 cancer, and doc, can you help me? I said, well, look, I would have loved to have seen you years ago, but look, let's do everything we can to build your immune system, turn your body into I'm going to use a slang, a lean, mean fighting machine. And I said, we're going to pump up your tires so that your immune system is going to turn on that cancer. We're going to make sure your T cells are working properly. We're not going to feed that cancer. You're not going to give it any more fuel. None. And we're going to block estrogen, because estrogen is a growth hormone, and no insulin, because insulin is a growth hormone. And so my protocol was immune system blocking, and don't feed cancer. And if you eat the right foods, cancer cannot feed on a steak. Cancer cells hate steak. According to Princeton. According to Princeton. Okay. So, look, again, this protocol, I talk about it all the time when people ask me. I say, well, look, I'm a very simple guy. If you want to go to Mexico and they're going to give you this, that, and the other thing, and you hear about, I remember telling patients in my office, I said, man, if I thought hanging you upside down from this roof in the building that we were practicing in, I said, if I thought hanging you upside down would do you any good to get rid of cancer, I'll go up on the roof and hold your feet. And I'll hang you upside down. I said, look, I'm not against, if you think some other, I said, look, all I know is what I know. All I know is what I read. All I know is my personal experience with, tens and hundreds of thousands of patients. And many of them with a very, very dark diagnosis. And look, I said, man, look, I'm not God. Okay? I'm not God. But here's what I recommend you do. Are you taking chemotherapy? You're taking radiation? You're having surgery? Hey, I'm not telling you not to do that. Ever. Nobody ever got, don't do that from me. I don't do that. I never did it with patients. I just said, man, you want the best of both worlds. If you're going down that road, and I used to tell patients too, if you don't do what the oncologist wants you to do, you're going to hear it from your family. I said, you better be prepared for that. Like I've been around the block a long time. And I said, you better be prepared. I'm not telling you what to do with that side of it. That side of medicine was never my expertise. I knew about it, of course, and read everything about it. And I wish we would have had more cooperation over the years between oncologists and guys like me. Some of them did, by the way. Okay? Some of them did. I had oncologists send me patients because I got results. They liked it. And they said, well, I'd go see Dr. Martin. I think he's worth going to find out what his protocol is. And I appreciated that. They didn't understand. I might have told you this story before, but I'm a storyteller, okay? No, but I got a call in the middle of the day, and usually I never took calls or whatever. I was busy, so But my secretary came to me and said, look, there's a doctor she's an oncologist at the cancer center, wants to talk to you. Okay, I'll talk to you. She said, Dr. Martin, I'm mad at you. Why? Well, she said, I got a patient here. That was one of your patients. I said, what's her name? And she gave me the name. I said, I sent her to you. Oh, you did? I said, yeah. I'm the one that sent her. Because I used to do thermography. And I did thermography different. Okay? Because I wasn't looking so much. I did look for inflammation. Okay? Because that's what thermography does. It's a heat detector. And, but I liked thermography because I had a very specific machine that looked at estrogen. And I had this lady come in and she had estrogen up the wazoo, especially around her chest wall. And she looked like a leopard on the scan, not face to face. The scan, I said, man, you got. And she had a little bit of a growth, I thought. I said, you got to go get it checked out, man. Go get it checked out. I said, I'm suspicious because of the amount of estrogen. And I said, you need to get this checked out. And so I sent her. And now the doctor was mad at me because this lady, patient, said, well, it was Dr. Martin that said I had cancer. Now, I never did say that. And this oncologist, I disarmed her. I said, I sent her to you. Oh. I said, would you let me know? I said, I was very suspicious. I told her about thermography. She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, look, man, I'm going to send you, and I did. That day, I sent her pictures. I said, look at her breast tissue. And she was fascinated by it. I said, well, you know what I do in my clinic? And this is what I'm recommending to this lady. I said, you tell me whether she has a tumor growing or not. I said, I can't tell that. But I said, man, I got to get her estrogen down. She said, how are you going to do that? Well, I said, you do it with medication with enormous amount of side effects. Tamoxifen. And I do it with a natural DIM. What? She didn't know what I was talking about. I said, can I prove it to you? And so for the next few years, we worked together. She said, go see Dr. Martin. Get him on the program. I'll do my thing here, and I'm going to send him to you. You get on that protocol to get that estrogen down. And I told this oncologist, I said, listen, you might disagree with me, but I think I'm right about this. And I said, in all due respect, I said, every breast cancer, every one. And I said, you don't do prostate cancer, but if you did, whenever you get breast cancer, in men, think of prostate cancer. You know why? They're identical. Same thing causes them. And I said, estrogen coming out the wazoo. She said, well, we test the cells. They're not estrogen receptive. I said, every cell in the body is estrogen receptive. Just some are more receptive than others. But I said, if you don't knock that estrogen down. Anyway, wasn't that a long story? We're on the topic of cancer. But, for me, it wasn't that complicated. I was a guy that wanted to get certain things done. Number one was in the kitchen. Number one was in the kitchen. Start in the kitchen. And that's not easy for people. Even with cancer, you would be shocked on people who can't, even with cancer, they'll go through chemo, they'll be sick as two dogs, they will go through radiation, they will lose their hair, whatever. Can you change your diet? What? I'm going to give up sugar? What? Coming back to that same oncologist, by the way. We had a funny relationship. That was actually a pleasant relationship. I said to her, now, when people leave the cancer center, make sure you don't give them any sugar. She said, Dr. Martin, is that true or come on? I said, well, you know what a PET scan is? It's not for your pets. She said, yeah, we have one here. I said, yeah. And what happens if you have cancer with a PET scan? Oh, she said, it's tremendous imaging. And I said, how does it work? She said, I don't know. I said, they give them a cup of glucose. And glucose goes directly to the cancer, whether it's in your head or in your toes. They give you a cup of glucose, or they give it to you IV of glucose. For heaven's sakes. I said, if you don't think sugar has no effect on cancer, I don't know what to tell you. She said, we didn't get taught that in medical school. I said, I know. And I wasn't being facetious, okay? I was trying to be nice. Because I understand they don't know that. Okay? So, protocol. Remember, two things out of Princeton. One, cancer is slow as molasses. The growth is slow as molasses. And don't feed it. And you will not feed cancer. If you hear Someone say red meat causes cancer? Run. They're lying to you. Okay? Cancer, oh, don't eat steak or don't eat red meat or that'll give you cancer no matter. Run, guys. Run. I'll tell you why. Princeton's telling you to run. Now, they won't say it in that way, but they said nutrient-dense food does not feed cancer. So when you eat an egg and you eat cheese and you get all those nutrients in steak, and when I say steak, you know what I mean. Red meat. Okay, you can have chicken too. Anyway. Okay. Guys. Okay. Demain. You know what demain means? Tomorrow. Off. Day off tomorrow. Again. Guess what we're doing? Saturday. Question and answer Saturday. 8:30 Eastern. Are we in daylight yet? No. Eastern Standard Time. Okay? Saturday morning. If you haven't got your questions in, send your questions in. Okay? We'll be happy to respond. Hey guys, thanks for putting up with the rants. You make it fun. I enjoy it. I hope you do too. We appreciate it. Talk to you soon.